Welcome everyone to my live stream here on Twitch and lichess. I'm International Master William Paschall. We're going to be playing some blitz and classical chess here with the viewers, along with some commentary and friendly chatter. We're going to get started in just a minute. I already have a couple of challenges. We're doing the stream every Monday to Friday from 10 to 12:30, usually for 2.5 hours. CET, or Central European Time. We're GMT +1, just in case you were wondering. So if you'd like to challenge, please feel free to challenge me between 5 and 8 minutes. That's the recommended time control, with an increment between 3 and 5 seconds. Basically, the faster time controls, like 5-6 minutes, you can use the longer increment of 5 seconds if you'd like. And with the longer time controls of 7 or 8 minutes, I prefer to use the shorter 3-second increment. But the maximum time control I'm willing to play is 8 + 3, which can take up to 20 minutes per game. So we're normally playing about 10 games per 2.5 hour stream on average. Anything pretty much between 9 and 12 games, depending on how fast they are. Welcome Plucro, welcome everyone. We've got challenges from Lavantula and Plucro, 6-5 and 5-4. Plucro, 5-4, it's perfectly cool. 6-5, that's good too. I don't know why I'm laughing, but we're having fun. Haven't finished my coffee yet. 6-5. Yesterday we had our simul stream every Sunday night, Central European Time, between between 6:30 and 9:30. I play a simul here on lichess with the 40-40 time control. And last night we had 20 players, finishing with 12 wins, 7 draws, 1 loss. Lavantula. Let's play the Sicilian. I'm usually a little bit slow to start. Last week, guys, on my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube, I put up a short video about reviewing some games that I've played in the Rossolimo Sicilian. So after bishop e5, I reviewed a bunch of games, several games from the stream, the blitz and classical stream, and I think also one game I played off stream, and that was kind of a new idea, but I like it. This idea of reviewing like specific openings, practical games from specific openings, I think is something I will implement. I also had a suggestion this past week about maybe streaming a tournament here on lichess, because Saturday I was like tilted and berserking and some blitz tournaments and having fun with that and donking off my rating points. I'm down to like 2350 in blitz after berserking many games, but it was fun, and I think it would be a cool thing to do, like a 5-0 blitz tournament, to live stream it very seriously, try to win it, and but maybe something like a weekly one, or something a little bit longer than the hourly blitz. Maybe simply an hourly blitz, or also possible to do a classical. The classical ones, though, the time might be kind of restrictive. Saddest troll, Gladys troll, whatever you are today, welcome. So, all right, let's play quickly. This is essentially a blitz game, 6-5. I had a tournament game yesterday. We gained 1 ELO rating point. Highly successful result. Okay, Lavantula. I'm going to play a6. This is my normal stuff. I don't want to transpose to a dragon because I don't play the main lines, really. That would require massive theoretical preparation. If you want to play the black side of the main line, dragon, you really need to be heavily prepared. The other possibility would go into the English attack, which also requires pretty heavy preparation. I have played the black side of the English attack extensively, but not too much in the recent past. Some years back, I did get to play the English attack against David Bertsesh, who's a grandmaster, and that was a funny game, though. I think he opened with like d4, and I played knight f6 and he played knight f3 and I played c5 and he played, that doesn't sound right. Somehow we transposed like with a weird move order and I got him to play the English attack, which he wasn't really an e4 player, so that's not a bad place to be when you get the white opponent who's not really an e4 player playing the white side of the English attack. But normally black requires a lot of theoretical knowledge, so that's why I play a6. On move 6 it's like an independent variation, but it was 10 years ago it was really kind of effective because it wasn't well known, but nowadays it's getting easier and easier to prepare your opening, so this is no longer like a surprise for most people. I think it's also fairly easy for white to choose a kind of simple path here. Black is slightly worse, which is pretty typical. If you play e4, c5, rather than the classical e4, e5, you probably are going to not equalize entirely right away. Alright, so one of the variations here. White also has knight takes c6 and queen e2. I think that's about it. Not that many options. I mean, I guess you could go mental with like g4. I've never had anyone do that. But anyway, this is the position. E takes d5. I'm not sure if it's better to play knight takes d5 or my move that I play frequently here, knight b4. I know that both are played. I'm not really sure. Like, I could spend an hour with the computer program and probably reach a definite conclusion as to which one of these moves is better. But I always tend to lean toward playing knight to b4 because it's a little more like trying to keep some pieces on the board. But if you use the opening explorer, this I've definitely had this reaction before. Black needs to develop quickly. It's kind of like it reminds me of a French Tarrasch for black. Knight on d4, pawn on e6, pawn on a6, white castling kingside. But it seems like a fairly good French Tarrasch for black, but it is a little hard to get the pieces out. I have to be a bit careful about tactics here. Knight f5 in particular. While at the same time developing my pieces because the e-file, is half open. So, bishop c5. I'd like to play bishop c5, but it's unprotected, and I'm a little bit worried about kind of setting myself up for various tactical possibilities. On the other hand, like knight can come to f5 on bishop e7, pretty much any move. I guess I could always play knight f6. It looks exceedingly passive. b5 weakens the queen side. So it's kind of a tough call here. Knight f6 is not, it's slightly passive, but it's not a ridiculous suggestion. I just wish I could find something a little more aggressive. Bishop c5. The problem is bishop c5, king h1, and then I'm kind of stuck. There's not really a good way to defend my bishop on c5. So we need to think quickly. Not thrilled about this move. It's really passive. My knight was on a good square on d5, but it does defend my king side. But I wish I could find something better there. I just didn't see how to play after bishop c5, king h1. Now he's close to like knight f5, but I don't think it works. Welcome everyone. Cyrix. How was my weekend? I drew my tournament game against a slightly higher rated player with black. And Friday I played poker. Queen e2, and again here we go. He's setting up this knight f5. That's a strong move. Sacrifices? I don't want to allow knight f5. Looks like white's better here. But my position remains fairly solid. There's a surprise. Not a lot of choices. He's playing awfully well. I think he played the opening pretty much perfectly too. I don't even know what I did wrong. I mean, it looks like I made completely logical moves. Until castles. Maybe I have to play bishop e7, let him play knight f5, take on f5, and play a slightly worse ending. That's sort of insipid. And I really wanted to play bishop c5. But king h1 is a problem there. Now he played king h1. I really thought he should think about sacrificing a piece on e6. Right there. I mean, nothing wrong with king h1. But if the piece sacrifice is strong, hard to argue against it. Now he sacrifices a piece. But I can't imagine this is as good as sacrificing at last move. Bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. Seems less effective than a moment ago. The other line, he has a similar thing, but my king is trapped in the center. Here he's got no clear way forward. Wow, we got suddenly a lot of chatter. Isn't it still equal after that? Since he would have had the horse on f5, you would have lost the bishop pair in an open position, of course. I can't really afford to lose my dark squared bishop with all my pawns on white squares. From a basic fundamental material count, it's equal, yes. But strategically, I would be much worse because his dark squared bishop would be very hard to fight against. I guess I can just play king g7. Getting out of the pin on my rook. Bishops and horses. Call them dogs. They look more like dogs than horses. In gangster terminology, they're called dogs. And now I thought it would be a timely moment to play like queen c6. I mean, what is he actually threatening here? I could just take the pawn on c2. trading queens into an ending where I'm only, well, I'm up a piece or 2 pawns. That is usually winning if I can trade the queens. Taking the pawn here looked possible. A bit greedy. His queen is his best attacking piece, so knight takes g4 is possible, but not necessarily a good idea. Get my last piece in the game. I'm in a second pin, a new pin here with the bishop on e7. So knight takes g4 is not working. I was thinking bishop f8 actually. Doesn't seem like a great idea in this spot though. Maybe trading one rook. I best be careful now. Knight d5 doesn't work. Rook d7. Rook d7. Allowing rook e6. This is getting a little problematic. The bishop's just hanging. Just a little visit to the center with my king, but he gave up his valuable dark squared bishop. He shouldn't really have anything here. He could just go back on the dark squares, or not. Anyway, welcome everyone to my stream. This first game for today, we're streaming till 12:30. G5 check. I don't know, maybe I'm safer on a white square. It's kind of strange. Well, at this point, white doesn't have any compensation. 2 pawns for being down a bishop is not enough. I don't know, man. He's got me really low on time now. Oh, trading queens. I think you had rook e8 check there, followed by queen e1. That looked like a reasonable try. Okay, now it's under control. Situation is under control. Got a little touch and go there. Actually, it was always kind of touch and go. He had a lot of compensation. Maybe I was never losing, but if he had made the sacrifice he made before my king left the center, he probably would have been clearly better. Oh man, he's relentless. This is hopeless for white. Even if there was no increment, it would be hopeless. trying to make progress. You can play king d5 if you want to. I'm going to let him down on the 7th here. This is a player who clearly is not used to giving up. King b5, rook takes d6, a2. Yeah, now if I play king b4, he has rook d8. He's still lost there as well. But just to be accurate, this is better. Not to give him the checks. Okay, so who's up next? Plucro? Constant change, I don't know, man. After all the games you played with me, you're challenging me to 10-0. It's very strange, dude. Maximum occupancy, also with a challenge I cannot accept. Will not play 3-2 here while I'm live streaming. And anyway, maximum occupancy does not have enough games. I do require everybody to have at least 50 games. I don't play new accounts. Mule Skinner is good, so we'll play him after Plucro. Unless somebody changes their challenge. Good luck. I feel like playing the English today. What time is that in relation? What? It's 1:20 a.m. over here. 1:20 a.m. What are you, like, Pacific time? You must be Pacific time. Alright, 4 Knights English. Kind of my favorite variation. How do you feel about title players cheating online? Well, I feel like it's worse than even like amateurs cheating online. But I've seen plenty of it. A lot of people might think that title players have so much stock in the game that they couldn't cheat. You know, I personally feel like that, but unfortunately, in my experience, that's not how it works in real life. I mean, obviously, if there's money involved, people are going to cheat, even if they're titled, if it's possible. It's just like human, you know, the evil side of human nature. But I have seen some really like sick things. Like, I was playing as a site pro for this now defunct site called World Chess Network, and it was pretty much common knowledge between a certain circle of us, in fact, like 3 or 4 of the site pros there, that one of the GMs who was playing on that site was using a computer in all his games. And I don't know that anyone ever, like, confronted him about it. I personally did not. Guys, if you want to check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training, I do have a series of a couple videos on this particular exact position, knight takes e5. A lot of players prefer to play bishop g2, including the great Magnus Carlsen, but knight takes e5 is very interesting. In Plucro, you can't just castle and give me a pawn. This, I mean, you can. It's a free, well, it's not really a free world, but chess is a game where you are technically allowed to do whatever you want. Alright, Plucro. You know what? I'm going to go back to f3 here, because I can use that piece to defend my king side, even at the cost of a little bit of time. Plucro, I think that's a good gambit in bullet chess, probably. But you might as well play, like, you know, sacrifice a pawn on move 1 or something instead. So, tough choice between d4 and c takes d here. But I think in any case, I'm going to have to take on d5. So he has some kind of negligible compensation. But again, it's only good in bullet chess. So what I was saying about the Site Pro, you know, the moral of the story is that people will cheat just to make themselves look good. I mean, it wasn't even about money or anything. He just he wanted to look like this great player that he wasn't really by cheating against all the other Site Pros on the site. I mean, that just goes to show you, a grandmaster will cheat for money, and he'll also cheat just for ego. It's demented, but that's the way it is. Gaglad, what are you putting out there? I don't know anything about the Tal Baron case. I don't know Tal Baron. I've never played him. No, I've been out of chess like really for the last 5 years. Like in my own little niche, but no, I don't know anything. I don't really play on chess.com, and but nothing would surprise me, you know. So. Obviously, I mean, grandmasters, Sebastian Feller was proven to be like a live. This is a grandmaster who was really a strong player, who was proven to be cheating live. I mean, so you can't trust title players any more than anyone else. That's what we learned. But anyway, I don't want the whole stream to lament on this cheating thing again, because it's a very popular and very annoying conversation. Anyway, I don't want to ignore it, but at the same time, I don't want to dwell on it constantly. Blue Crow, not a good pawn sacrifice, but let's see if you can get a little bit of compensation. Gagdad says I should look at a game. Well, this is something I might do later. At the moment, I'm a little bit booked. Blue Crow, I just borrowed that word from your chat there in the commentary. He says he usually plays f5 against c4. I'm not booked up. Nothing wrong with playing f5 against c4. It's certainly just as good as against d4. It usually transposes to some kind of closed English. Well, I was thinking let's trade some pieces. When you're up a pawn, basically it's usually a good thing to trade pieces. We at Bacons have plundered Mr. Fisher's treasured belongings. At least we do not cheat in a Title Tuesday. Yeah, it's something. There's nothing new under the sun, you know. Back in the day, even 10 or 15 years ago, people were cheating online. So it's human nature, I guess. Unfortunately, personally, I would never do that. I can't really identify with it. It goes against my principles to cheat, you know. Maybe if there was a massive amount of money online, like $1 million, it would be tempting. But I just, to be honest, it would really have to be like something to tempt me, man. Because I just put a lot of value on sportsmanship and fair play, you know, and I've put a lot of my life into the game, you know, so if I become a cheater, I'm like nothing, you know. I have to say, I can't really understand it. Constant Change says, very good game last night. And Simon, I thought I was doing good. I'm trying to remember now, Constant Change. We did have some interesting games yesterday. In particular, I was happy with my game with the highest rated player, Black Zombie. It was a funny position where I thought I was busted out of the opening, but the computer says I was better. But I had to find some kind of cool moves not to be worse in that game. So Usually I don't have very much time to make my moves in my Sunday simul. So tactical variations, like I had to calculate against Black Zombie, oftentimes I'll make some kind of mistakes, given like I only have like 10 seconds per move on average. So there were some good games yesterday. I did lose an ending in one game, but the overall result was good. If you guys are wondering what I'm talking about, every Sunday I play a simul on lichess. Now here I'm tied to this pin. It's going to be kind of problematic to get out of the pin, I guess. We could always sacrifice our queen for a rook and knight and pawn. I mean, that wouldn't be ridiculous. I mean, if I play pawn takes pawn, it's probably a game. Pawn takes knight, that is. What opening should I play against you? I can't decide. Mixil Papa says, I want to play with you. You accept rated games or friendly. Casual games, I dropped a pawn back. Uh-oh. Yeah, I got a little panicked there and distracted. And I've got more excuses if you guys are interested. So, what's the best here? Maybe we best get rid of that dangerous bishop. Another mistake that I think we can make practically is, I see this in poker too, like not accepting what's happened and then playing badly after. The situation changes and people can't handle it and they start to go on tilt, or, you know, tilt exists in every game, not just like poker. In chess, like here, I made a mistake, I dropped a pawn, and now it's easy to like become irrational, like, oh my god, I dropped a pawn, now I've got to do something desperate. It's very important to like land on your feet and say, okay, I made a mistake, let's make the best out of the current situation. That's all you can ever do. Exactly, I was scared of c5. All I can do is just make the best out of the situation that I've been given, or given myself. Still, Plucro has a horrible structure, so if we look at the bright side here, maybe we're still better, in fact. Maybe we're still winning. Yes, I'm angry with myself for dropping a pawn, but that's life. Plucro has less time than me. He's losing again. So, we recovered. Bad bishop. And a very strong pass pawn on d5. How quickly things change. You're the king hunter. Okay, no relation to king hunter. We had another. No, hunt the king, right? You're not related to the guy Hunt the King? It's strange. I saw that account and I was like, I thought he made another account with the same name. Because we have a long-time regular player here called Hunt the King. And I thought you were him. I mean, it's possible you are, but I, for some reason, thought Hunt the King was like from somewhere else. Pucro has a tactic. It took me a minute to understand what was going on there. It looks insufficient. We just don't panic. And he can't strengthen his attack. So we're just up a knight, more or less. Plucro, messy game, dude. Why don't you challenge me to longer, like 7 minutes? Thanks for relaying beacons. Okay, constant change. The Queen C7 game, right. I thank you for reminding me. Now I know. Yeah, it was funny. You know, I thought that we'd like transposed to some kind of normal line in the Paulson. The computer agreed with me that I recapture on c6 with the d pawn. It's more dynamic to take the other way, but it was an interesting game. But at some point you went wrong. Now it doesn't occur to me like exactly where. I'm sure you know better than me. You've probably analyzed it. Mule Skinner, Epithetos, IK Corwin, Constant Change, BFLZ. BFLZ, I don't normally do... If you don't mind BFLZ to change your increment to 6-5, but I'll let it go. Paper Sword needs to change his challenge to something with an increment under 9 minutes. All right, guys. So Mixel Papas, I think you're in the list now. But can't you eat his rook? Well, I was hanging a rook too. You know, it would have been an exchange. I guess it was possible. But I just felt it was more secure to do it this way. I'm up a piece. Mule Skinner aborted the game. I guess he had something to do. Something has come up for Mr. Mule Skinner. So we'll play Epithetos. Guys, I just asked that the challenges be casual. Though it doesn't matter at this point. I sort of tilted off all my rating points in Blitz here because I was playing just endless 5-minute tournaments with with berserking and stuff on Saturday, which is something I don't normally do. But it's hard not to lose rating points when you play these Blitz tournaments, the hourly Blitz tournaments here, where basically I'm like the highest rated player by 300 points or something. It's not really good for my lichess rating, but I was on tilt this weekend. Yeah, constant change. It was a tense game, you know, and I think you were fine until a point. So Apathetos, I don't recall if we played this before, but this is my new experimental variation with b6. Critical is e4, of course, you know, and that's kind of been a topical line in theory. There was a game recently in the Russian Superfinal, and it was, I'm trying to remember who it was playing white. Somebody had white against Tomaszewski. I think it was some slightly less high-rated Russian GM. But anyway, knight f3 like transposes to a kind of quiet classical variation. It isn't bad, but it's not as critical as e4. So I guess I have to play bishop b7 here. There might be another move. c5. Is c5 castles looks... I don't really like castling when bishop g5 is still available, if I can keep my options open. This will transpose to, like, what do they call this? Grigorich calls it the flexible variation. I don't know. That book was written in 1985. Played the Nimzo Indian. The first comprehensive, I guess, you know, English book on the Nimzo Indian, but Svetozar Grigorich was like one of the greatest players in the 90s, and no, actually earlier, like in the 70s and 80s. He wrote this groundbreaking book on the Nimzo, and he calls this knight f3, knight c3 the flexible variation. Apathetos has played queen c2. That's a mix of several different systems here. So we transpose to one of these flexible lines, which I've played many times. My bishop's committed to b4. There are other lines where I haven't moved the bishop already. I would play bishop e7 here. But this is well-known theoretical territory. It's a little risky for black, but it's pretty well established. By not castling kingside, I have a lot of options with my king. I can go kingside, I can go queenside, I can leave the king in the center. We have flexibility. It's possible to castle on move 5, but those positions are, you know, I'm more committed to my king being on the king side, and it's scarier to play g5 when your king is committed to the king side. The only good way of breaking the pin, but the theory just starts here. This is like the beginning position for this line. Mubat going to work on the chat. So bishop e5, yeah, this is some rare move. I don't think that it's great, but playable. And I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to do. It looks like it's a little bit like a loss of time. I'm sure castling is possible. It's not that easy to like checkmate black or something on the king's side, believe it or not. Castling f6 and rook g8, they're all three are very serious possibilities here. f6 is not a very constructive move. You know, that's my problem with that. But I could play f6 and with the idea of f5. You know, I think I'm kind of gaining a tempo here. And on the other hand, I don't have to play f5 right away, but it may be the only move that makes sense. I mean, h5, h4, I don't like that much. So we kind of gained a free move. And now there's a big question about this looks good for black, I think. But there's some question about how to resolve the pawn tension. Bishop takes c3, b takes c3, knight takes g3, f takes g3. A very good structure for black. But there is a problem with my each file opening up. And then how do I deal with that? Like g4, knight e5. Should be fine though. But like I don't have this committed to memory. There's also f4 here, you know. I mean, it's it looks pretty good, but there could be a downside, like bishop h2. What do I do next? It's all fine and good, but what's the plan after that? No, I mean, I don't think I can maintain that that f4 pawn. He'll break out eventually if I do that. Now, bishop e4 is interesting here, but I'm not sure it's really a good move. He can move his queen and then like challenge the bishop with knight d2 at some point. Not sure. This looks like kind of playable for both sides, this position. I'm not sure that I'm better here. I feel like I should be structurally, but still there's some problems to work out. We're also running out of time. I guess we stick with the plan of playing g4. Now, initially I want to play d6, but he can play knight g6. It's pretty hard to get rid of that guy. h5. Kind of a complicated position. Queen f6 guards, knight g6. It also develops a piece, but it's probably not the best move. Who's to say? I have a lot of options, actually. We're just really low on time. I think black's fine, but a bit low on time. Alright, let's get developed. I mean, I just want to get rid of that. I'd love to play d6, but he has queen a4 check, which was kind of unpleasant. Now knight d3. Knight d3 is a nice combative move. Epithetos. Oh, he's from the US. I keep thinking you're from Greece with that name. White is better now. I don't really have any counterplay. He played this like a master, man. I can't castle queenside because of a4, a5. I've been completely outplayed. Completely outplayed. Plus I'm down 3 minutes on the clock, dude. It's a pretty impressive game by White. It's definitely his best game he's played against me. Should I not play a5? Yeah, I think a5 was right. Definitely. Fixing his pawn on a4. He's playing bullet now. This is one thing I try to ask people not to play for time. He's clearly like playing to like flag me. But I would prefer that wasn't our goal here. That when you don't have time, when I don't have time, you still try to play good moves. Not just try to run me over on the clock. Because it's kind of not the point of my particular stream. You know, now it's like he's just trying to run me over on the clock. But he's kind of jettisoning his position. Although pawn takes... pawn takes may have been better. It was kind of a tough call for me. This is equal, I guess. No, now he's like worse. Should probably give a check on a2. Epithetos, why are you playing so fast, man? It's 5-5. I mean, the entire game he played fast, but that's a terrible move. Why not rook d5 there? He's just losing. Doesn't matter if I give him my h-pawn. This outside pawn's too strong. Epithetos, you had a great position and you just like played for flag and then gave me everything. Why? This might be a mistake by me to play rook takes g3. Maybe I should give a check here. This was a horrible, horrible endgame. Let's just pretend it never happened. So he had a great game and then butchered it. You cannot play for flag, dude, when it's a 5-second increment game. Ever. Even with 3-second increment. I think when you're talking about like 2-second increment, you can start thinking about trying to push someone over on the clock, but if he's a competent player, even with 2 seconds, it's not going to work. Maybe in 1-second increment you can play for flag, but it's probably not a good idea ever with any kind of increment, you know, to play for time. All right, thank you for the game. IK Corwin. Epithetos is challenging me to a rematch. Is he for real? Maybe you misclicked. He's got 3 minutes on time and he's not looking for the best moves. Exactly. IK Corwin. I mean, it's just a shame because you played a really, really good game for like the first 20 moves and you were clearly better. Let's try E45. I haven't played this in a while. I'm not like a long time E45 player. I'm not really a classical player. Though I play white against the white in the Lopez I do play pretty well. But otherwise I'm not really a classical opening player. Yeah, dude, you need to relax a little bit. So, IK Corwin here. I played G6 against the Scotch. This is an interesting variation, knight takes C6. I think the Queen D4 is a move there. If I remember correctly, maybe I have to play Queen F6 and it's okay for black. But C4, this actually transposes to a King's Indian, effectively. But I think it's a fairly good King's Indian for black, where you've exchanged the knight on C6, giving me kind of good control of the center. And one thing I want to make a point about, this is not always the case, but in general, I prefer to put my knight on F6 rather than E7 in these types of positions. But the question is, if I allow E5 and I don't have a square to move the knight to there, I've got a problem. Like knight F6, E5, Queen E7, Queen E2, classic Scotch dilemma. That's not really good for me. So I think I could play knight E7, but I prefer to play D6 and knight F6 here. And I'm a King's Indian player, so I'm used to putting my knight on F6. A lot of these modern defenses, you'll see people play sort of hybrid King's Indians with the knight on E7. I never really had a great feel for those kind of things, although sometimes I played a Benoni with the knight on E7 here. So it's equal. This position is about equal. White has the bigger center, but this pawn on C6. Pawn on C6 kind of nullifies his Marazzi control of D5 and whatnot. Okay, so now we're into Nizamedinov territory, it looks like. A couple different ways to set up here. I mean, should I develop another piece? Rook B8, knight D7 to C5 is interesting. The other possibility is to go knight G4 and start provoking white. I don't understand C4 when black will have D5 anyway. Well, D5 is one possibility. But, you know, being an accelerated dragon player, I kind of like to play against the Marazzi type of structure. And as I highlighted, you know, this is not a great version for white, because I've got the pawn on C6, which just is such a vital asset in controlling the center. But to be fair, I mean, Plucro, we could blast away with D5, you know, some kind of direct Steinitzian kind of thing where we just blow up in the center and equalize or something. So in some positions, that's good. If you look up Steinitz's old games, one of the first games I ever saw someone play G6 against the Scotch was probably a Steinitz game, you know, from the late 1800s. This looks very weakening for white, but it's okay. You can go ahead and do that. I don't mind white giving up this bishop here. It is the bad bishop, so I think f4 is fine. And I still think the position's about equal. We do have f5 here. And our bishop comes to life. Because if I don't do that, I feel like I don't have enough activity. In general, I don't like to do f5 all the time in Imaratzis and stuff like that, where we're weakening our king side. But I think here, because white doesn't have a white squared bishop, we can also take back with a pawn on f5 as well. It's kind of a tough call. I mean, controlling the e4 square is pretty huge. But in a vacuum, I'm gaining tempo here. The pawn on f5 can restrict my pieces. I think we're going to go with the bishop. This is such and so often a problem piece. I talk about it over and over again. If you watch my stream regularly, for black, the queen's bishop is always, almost always the problem strategically. So we've got the bishop pair. We've got a good game. White's a little overextended. We're obviously going to sacrifice the bishop on g4. Double pawns, what? Every time you have a double pawn, you have a half-open file the other guy doesn't have. Don't forget that. Okay, white just lost a rook. No. But this is kind of interesting. Rook e8. This looks like an awfully good endgame for black. Rook e8. Bishop d4 check. That doesn't help. I'm just trying to evaluate this endgame. I mean, I've got to be just winning. Clearly better, but maybe not winning. And then there's the question of how to do it. You know, maybe I should play bishop d4 check first, but then he goes king h2, and then trade queens. Really a tough call. Maybe the other rook, ironically. I don't know, man. There's the intermezzo bishop d4 check, which does nothing. Or does it? Queen takes e7, bishop d4 check, bishop e3. Rook takes e3. Queen somewhere. Well, that's pretty interesting. That would be interesting. But he can do like king h2 or something. We transpose the last variation. I think I'm just going to simply play this ending where I'm better with the bishops. The monster King's Indian bishop in particular. I'm not sure I like c4 in the opening for white, but it's playable. I wouldn't personally play knight takes c6 unless it wins by force, you know. It has a very good score, like in the opening Explorer or something, but there are very few games, and I think they're not really statistically relevant. So, at first I thought I was just winning a pawn here. And I think I am. Yeah, I'm just winning a pawn. Okay, it's good. It's all good. This pawn... Actually, there's some problem, though. Man, oh man. I thought life was going to be easy. Slicing, dicing bishops. Is it enough to win the game? G5 is a maneuver to to open lines against the white king. I don't know where our moderator is today. He lost the Simul game yesterday. He resigned in a position where he was clearly worse, but Jeroen, I thought he should have played a pawn sacrifice like this when he resigned. He had like g4, sacrifice, break up a pawn chain, open the pieces. I don't think it's enough here. I mean, I can't sacrifice pawns lightly in an endgame like this. Black is better, but is it enough to win the game? I don't know. His pieces are stuck. This is the big problem. The pieces are not activated, and I've got very powerful developed pieces myself. Irish pawns. Gotta play c5 there. I mean, it's just only chance. Otherwise, you're just clear pawn down here. Now we're looking at long diagonal. Putting this bishop on the long diagonal, I guess. Whatever. We don't have a perfect pawn structure either with this pawn on a7, the doubled pawns, but I mean, I could have played bishop d3, but honestly, it's kind of vulnerable there. Mule Skinner, what happened to your challenge? Corwin. Makes me think of Lovecraft horror. Joseph Corwin, but that's different. This is C-O-R-W-A-N. This C7 pawn is driving me crazy. I've got this permanent weakness here. He can keep attacking it, like with bishop a5. f5, losing a piece. Okay, well, anyway. White was in time pressure in an unpleasant position, but I think c5 there, you give me the Irish pawns, and I don't have to take it, but it's not going to be that easy for me to win with the tripled pawns. So, Black never had any issues there. Again, going back there to that position, I mean, c5, this seems like you got to do it. I'm not even sure if I really want to take, but objectively, maybe I have other moves like rook e8, intermezzo or something, I don't know, but d5. But I probably would have taken it. Okay, Constant Change is up next. King Hunter, Saul Conan. This BFL is good, but Paper Sword, I can't play 10-3, man. It's just too long. The maximum is 8-3. Ugur, I don't know if we're going to get that many games in, so I think we're looking at like 6 games maximum at this point until the end of the stream. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Ugur, if you re-challenge, you could possibly play. Ugur should re-challenge to something with a small increment, like 7-3. There was a lot of interesting lines. There were a lot of interesting lines in that position. Just all good for Black, of course. White, I would prefer not to trade knights on c6. It's against principles. Yes, there are doubled pawns, but the center, control of the center is a little more important. Unless White has something forcing with like queen d4 or e5, I think that giving Black better control of the center is, you're giving up more than you're gaining by doubling my pawns on c6. Constant Change, Okay, let's try the Caro-Kann against you. Guys, we're streaming till 12:30 CET. This is cool. I don't remember in the past what I've played with constant change in the Caro-Kann. But I have talked about, you know, in years past I played knight d7. I have very bad results with that move. I've also played knight f6. I also don't have good results. So, I mean, I think that the moral of the story is, although knight f6, maybe knight takes f6, e takes f6 is okay for black, bishop f5 is the move. What do you do at 12 o'clock? You eat lunch, prepare for other work that you have. I wish I could just stream indefinitely here, guys, but unfortunately do have other things I have to attend to. Don't forget about my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Also, I'd like to thank people who've donated to the stream via PayPal. Much appreciated. I played e6 instead of knight d7 in some previous games, but this is kind of a risky line to allow white to establish a knight on e5. You know, it's more classical to play knight to d7. And classical makes sense. This is the so-called classical variation. I studied this probably 30 years ago. I can remember studying this around 1987, maybe even earlier. I had a very, very good book from Kasparov, actually, of all people. Well, I'm supposed to play queen a5 check here right away. I was looking at this the other day. I mean, I know there's some weird moves like queen b5. Although this particular position is probably not good because of c4. I think this is main line, you know. Probably I think we're actually following a game from Weekend Z. Oh, there was a game in the B tournament, actually. Now that I remember, if I remember correctly, no, there was a game in the B tournament where, in the Weekend Z B tournament, in this position, I think Van Forest played bishop d2 against, Van Forest against Lamy. Played bishop d2. Kind of a rare move, and I was suggesting even a5 is interesting there. I think I've got the right position. I'm pretty sure. But what we played here is what? My name is what? What is that? You can do that? Knight takes e5? Okay, that can't be right. I think this just loses a pawn for white, just flat out. An intuitive sacrifice. I mean, even if I couldn't take this pawn, I think that black is probably okay with like knight to d5. White would have enough space to kind of compensate. This just looks like he's dropping his central pawn without really close to enough compensation. This is the main line. The old main line, like that I analyzed 30 years ago. I mean, they're like Spassky games and Karpov and whoever. a million games from like the 60s in this variation. I think Tal probably played this line for black. Ironically, like Mikhail Tal, who was such a great tactician, sometimes played some fairly solid openings, like the French and the Caro-Kann with black. Pukro says what? Okay, so bishop c3. Now let's just be careful here. Make sure he doesn't have anything. Well, the main problem for white, I guess, should be that I can play in some lines queen d5, threaten to trade queens, and take his pawn on a2. I mean, this is a huge theme in many, many lines. And after queen d5, if he drops the a2 pawn, I'm threatening mate. There's bishop a3. It's a total disaster. So I think he has to bail out into an ending. Bishop takes f6. G takes f6. Maybe knight e4 or something. I also have a check, but that would leave me in kind of a questionable situation. So this is pretty much forced. It's not like white wants to be a pawn down in an ending after, you know, you don't really want to trade queens after you dropped a pawn or sacrificed a pawn unsoundly. So he's fighting for his life here. I would think, unless I missed something really obvious. Maybe white thought he had bishop a5. Yeah, sometimes you have bishop a5. Yeah, my queen is guarding that square. I really thought he should have played bishop takes f6 straight up. Now I have additional options. He doesn't wreck my pawn structure. So, kind of a thankless task here for white to draw down a pawn. That being said, his bishop's very strong on c3, and it's true, but he's clear pawn down. Like zero compensation. Rook d8 is interesting, trading pieces. Of course, we could wait a move with that, perhaps. Bishop e7 has some problems. There's also knight d5, but how am I going to keep like this pawn protected on g7? I'll have to play f6 later. So I'm just trying to think what's the best way to do this. Rook d8, rook takes, rook d1 check, king back, or king back probably. As good as anything, I suppose. Bishop e7 would also be fine. So he doesn't want to give me... Well, the file is not an issue. I say he's just kind of clear pawn down here. Bishop e7. He's got to watch the h5 pawn. That's the bane of white's existence in such endgames. Many a Caro-Kann classical variation has been lost because this pawn fell off the side of the map in the endgame. Yes, bishop d4. I don't like putting pawns on dark squares, but it might be worth gaining a tempo. There's also a6 though. Seems simplest. It slightly weakens my pawn structure. And b6, the same holds true for b6. Okay, everything slightly weakens my pawn structure. a c5 right away. My king could come in handy, you know, if he can get active somehow. His rook wanders off the d file. My king could be massive in the ending. White's obviously trying to hang on here. The black could mess up and be worse somehow if I drop a pawn. I'm hoping not to do that. That was a tough judgment call, though. I mean, do you want to put your pawns on dark squares with white having a dark square bishop on the board? It's c5 gains a tempo, but then I'm like tied down to that pawn, possibly. Also letting him put his pawns on white squares. After king b1, I could have tried something greedy, like grabbing another pawn on g2. I mean, that's pretty ambitious. I'm afraid I'm having a hard time figuring out how to get free here. Breaking free. There is bishop d8 followed by bishop c7, but he can play bishop e5. I think I'm going to have to do this manually. Don't really like it. I don't really like it, but trading off his h-pawn is the only way to get my rook in the game. It also allows me to move my knight. You know, I could just play knight d7 or something. The constant change seems to be highly motivated now. You know, whereas in the opening he just kind of played whatever. He became highly motivated. A4, an excellent move, giving him counterplay. So now what? Bishop b4. A5. He's got maybe b5 for me. The lines are starting to open up on the queen side. It's getting a little bit dodgy. Knight d7. All right. Almost entirely tactically based move. Yeah, castling would have resulted in rook d7 in some lines, which is something I definitely didn't like. Knight d7 is against the rook to b3 idea. Well, let's see. This was the idea. May not be that great for me, though. We shall see. Playing this endgame. He has played endgames against me very, very well. Normally constant change plays too fast. Now there, bishop c3 looked like a great move. Hard to see because you're dropping the pawn on f2, but bishop c3 would have made life extremely difficult for me. So I have bishop takes, knight c5. Maybe just b6. b6 is no good. I have to play this. Incredibly well calculated by white. The other variation was, as I said, bishop c3 after bishop c5. This looks like a dead end for white, but I'm not that certain. I never got to free my pieces. My rook couldn't get in the game. Yeah, of course. Now I have to like fight for a draw somehow. I have to admit I didn't see that move, although I saw the theme. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive tactic. I'm not certain it was the best though. White had other options. I might be okay here. You had that. I did see that, right? Now I'm down a pawn. His knight is in an awkward spot, obviously. That's the understatement of the year. Probably I'm okay here. This is probably equal. Now he's dropping the a4 pawn. My king is alright. So both sides made a lot of mistakes here. Very, very sloppy ending that will probably end in an equal position. He had some lasting compensation though, it's true. Rook a8. Don't want to play knight c5 unless I have to. But if I do, I want it to be on my circumstances. On my... Actually... Whatever. My circumstances. His rook is still kind of boxed in there. I'm not sure that's beneficial. Rook b5. This pawn is now kind of an advantage for white in some lines and a disadvantage in others. In others. Oh no. Alright. It should be equal. Kind of tricky though. Pretty good technique, man. I don't know. This is kind of tricky. Should be a draw, I guess. Maybe not, though. Not so easy. Well, that's a good move. Or not. How do I make progress here? I think we've ever had an ending quite like this before. Oh. Okay, we got lucky there. It's still a draw after like rook c5. I don't know though. I mean, it's very technical. Rook c5 is actually mate. Sorry, rook c6. I meant to say rook c6 here. This may be lost for white. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I looked at this. Well, if his rook was on c5, yeah, it may be a draw. If he get his rook to c5 and his king in a normal place, kind of technical. Very, very sloppy ending by both sides. Welcome, everyone. Hi, Liger Bimbom. If have the pawn on b2 is draw, yes, of course. I mean, you know, if the pieces are in the right place, that's the standard kind of draw. Like the further pawn is back. If your rook has it can revolve between like the two outposts that the pawn protects, you know. That's the optimal defensive setup. So you have a pawn on b2, and the rook just goes rook a3, rook c3, rook a3, rook c3, and it's always protected by a pawn. There's no getting behind the king. That's the problem with the advanced pawn there. Let's play knight d2. King Hunter AOU. The new King Hunter. We have Hunt the King and King Hunter. Okay, so I played this on a lark. I don't really like play this line usually with white. I played it with black though. Oh, I just hung a pawn. Well, that's what you get when you play something you don't normally play. Alright, strange move to play. I hallucinated it was a different position. It's alright. You can give me a take back if you want to, but it's certainly not required. I'm a little flustered from the last game, but I did some strange things. I played knight bd2. I don't normally do that. And then when you castled, I was thinking, what position was I thinking this was? I had a strange hallucination. So he's letting me have a take back. Okay, well, thanks, master. I mean, I'm trying to think, what did I think this position was that I could play e4? Something I played recently with black where I let white play e4 in this line. Bishop e4 check, castles. I guess a3, bishop e7. Does that make sense? I guess I played that against Viktor Erdos. a3, bishop e7, e4. That has to be what I was thinking of to make me play e4 there. Very strange. Anyway, okay, let's just play. Sorry, I'm just not in my element here. I never play knight on bd2. I don't know why. I shouldn't have done this against a stronger player. So I'm looking at the position like from black's perspective because I never ever play this with white. Just wanted to try something different. Okay, a3, I guess. Okay, he wants to play this anyway. So Erdos versus me. But this is a risky line for black, and I shouldn't have played it against someone as strong as Erdos, who's like 2650. I don't know about c5 there. That's kind of experimental. d6 is the normal move. Who's the Russian that plays this with black? My memory is really going, but a young guy, a very, very strong young player. Can't remember his name now. c5 right away. I would think white just plays e4. I mean d5 here. I'm all mixed up. e5 is also very complex. I have to have a look at this. King Hunter A. Is this a new account? No. Okay. He's not a new account. I've never played him before, ever. But I'm completely out of my element here. Bishop g4 seems a bit strange in a way. It seems a bit strange in a way. I mean, that's your good bishop. Do you want to trade it off? Maybe we'll go back. I was almost going to play bishop e2 straight up. I can turn it into a kind of King's Indian type position. I don't think the tempo here is that big a deal. In this King's Indian sort of situation, he doesn't really want to trade. He's still fine though. He can trade off his bad bishop as well. I guess it's all relative. Black's very solid. Don't really like bishop d7, but it's not that bad. I'm not sure it really serves a purpose. You know, it's probably more efficient to just trade on e2 and play bishop g5, but half dozen of one, six of the other. This is quite solid for black. Is he a bullet player? Yeah. Mostly bullet. So taking here on f5's got to be considered. I'm not afraid of a kingside attack though, per se. He's awfully fast. Just Just not quite sure what I'm exactly trying to do here. I don't like this game. I mean, it's nothing for white. This is like equal. I don't know what I'm doing on the white side of the knight d2 BOGO. I have to admit, no clue. No clue. Never could play it. I tried a couple times, but I always got a bad result with white. I'm bad on both sides of the knight d2 BOGO, to be perfectly honest. Never really got a feel for it. Tried different stuff with black, never really been happy. Knight g7. It's kind of okay for black, but nothing special. Yeah, black's perfectly fine here. I'm just not objectively sure what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe g3? Just to take away the square from black. And this guy's got this down to a science. c5 is a very rare move. It's ironic that he would play the exact variation that I played with bishop e7 and e4. It's not very common to play this. This is extremely unusual to play bishop e7. But has been featured in some recent games. It's much more common to trade on d2. I mean, that's the main line. So I lost against Erdos Victor this summer. Now f4. I wonder, should I take on f4 maybe? g4 is trying to blockade the king side. Maybe more classical. In any case, my king is probably safer over here. He's slightly tied down to this pawn. And we're going to try to maybe activate our queenside pieces like the rook. Rook b1. Is f4 a decent move? I wasn't sure you were talking about for black or white. Rook c8 is kind of strange. Black's play a bit risky, maybe good. Letting me get a knight on c6. Looks kind of optimistic. Most people would recapture with the pawn on c5. He's going for some kind of crazy attack. Well, he's obviously playing for time too. Yeah, this bishop's got to go. Bishop on e5. He's letting me play knight takes e5 there even. I think I'd rather keep my knight on c6. this game, this 5-3 against a bullet player. Pretty tough. I mean, the last game was kind of took a lot out of me, to be honest. I wasn't really the same after that. I think he's pre-moving a lot. Oh, I see his plan, yep. It was a good decision to trade queens. Oh, he has that. Looks like he blundered with knight f6. Or not. Wow. Guess it wasn't a blunder. He blundered there. I think he was winning completely for one moment. Now it's a draw. He had g5 in one moment, just winning. Well, this is not necessarily a draw. Of course. No, he's probably winning here. Yeah. Okay, it's not that easy, but should be a win. Yeah, it's perfect technique. Okay. So, good game. He wants to play a new game with me. I don't think he understands the purpose of the stream here. Okay, Saukonen is up. Just a really bad endgame. I was winning, then losing, then winning, then losing. It's a bullet game. But it was an awful game. Just an absolutely atrocious game by both sides. To be perfectly honest. one of the worst games I played on the stream. I don't know, I feel a little bit zoned out or something. G5 was just winning completely. I mean, he missed that. He was just playing for time, but he could have just mated me. It was a terrible mistake. I misevaluated the ending. I thought I had drawing chances, but I let his king get out of control. Okay, this is an important theoretical variation. That's dropping a piece. We'll give him a take back. Salkonen, take your time and pay attention, man. You're like me last game. I dropped my e4 pawn. I never play knight to d2 against the Bogo Indian. Absolutely no clue what I'm doing there. But whatever. I don't even like to allow the Bogo Indian anymore. I'm really sick of it. I'd rather play knight c3 on move 3. The Bogo Indian is really the more passive lines with like queen e7. It's so boring to play for both sides. It's insipid. I can't. I don't think I can bear to play that opening anymore for white. You've got to come up with a good move here. A guy in my simul yesterday played queen d2. That's not great. You're supposed to play either bishop b5, developing quickly, or bishop g5, keeping your bishop on the board. Understanding principles seems more important than memorizing games. That should go without saying. On this position I've had on a number of occasions for both sides. This is actually a position I really play for both sides. Unlike the last game, when I really don't have a clue with white. This line I've played with white against Yermolinsky. Black many times, including against Naka. I had a draw with Nakamura. I've also been black against tons of people. But there are two different moves, I guess, for black here. h6 and g5, or queen b6. And queen b6 is the move I've played. There may be a problem with this move, though. I thought it was okay for black. But some lines looked a little bit dangerous further down the line. So I guess h6 is the better solution. Though it's very radically weakening the black king side. The extended fianchetto with g5. I prefer white in that line. I thought queen b6 was a solution, but I'm not so sure theoretically that black is okay. In the GM level, how much is preparation versus raw skills in a tournament like Tata? Yeah, I mean, it depends on the player, you know. I mean, I think certain players are really focusing on opening theory, you know, more than others. Carlsen, despite him being the world champion and whatnot, you know, on the scale of 1 to 10, as far as how important opening preparation, I think most of the top players in Tata, like, opening preparation is probably, like, in terms of a scale of 1 to 10, like, very important, like 9, you know. But for a player like Carlsen, who's so practical and overall strong, it's probably like his opening preparation is like a 6 on a scale of 1 to 10. How important is his opening preparation? So it really depends on the player and their style, largely. How much of your game you really base on opening preparation. But it's not that many people that are like Carlsen. I mean, there just aren't that many great players like Carlsen who can get as far as they can. Get as far as he's gotten, you know, the top of the chess elite, without really being an opening theoretician. I think I can safely say that he's not an opening theoretician. He borrows other people's ideas. He's not playing overly sharp systems. It is kind of amazing what he's done, you know, because in today's day and age, with so much opening knowledge out there, openly available, you would think the opening preparation would count for more, but Carlsen is proving otherwise. Luke McShane claiming bishop c1 is the best move. Be careful, Plucro, because there is also there's also a similar variation in the Najdorf. So sometimes people get them mixed up. I'm not sure which one he was referring to. But Salkonen here, playing a very sharp variation without really knowing it is a recipe for disaster. Last game against King Hunter, I mean, you can get away with playing the white side of the knight d2 Bogo Indian without knowing the theory. But in this open Sicilian, it's not really possible to get away with not knowing theory. Knight takes f2, I guess, is simplest. I'm sure we have other moves. But this wins a pawn. I mean, I don't know how much compensation White really has here. Perhaps he has. Perhaps he has some real compensation. I could see that. Debatable. Probably he has enough compensation for the sacrificed pawn. It's like I've got no pieces developed, Although my position is very compact. However, after that move, his chance to play knight d5 is gone. I'm not sure that White any longer has enough compensation for the sacrificed pawn. I think I need more oxygen. Maybe that's why I played so badly last game. It's just so freezing all the time. I never want to open the window. Still, he has some compensation, apparently. Kind of amazing. I mean, it seems like White misplayed this quite a different way, in different ways. But, okay, it's not enough. But he has knight b5. He can harass me a little bit here. It's probably not really enough. I will have to forfeit my castling right. Probably King d7, as ugly as that is the best solution. Well, King d8. King d8, bishop f4, that's the question. Maybe it's more accurate to play king d7. Not to give him a chance to play bishop f4 and whatnot. So now a6. I'm not even sure a6 is a great move. It's safer to play like b6. So he's still like making my life kind of difficult here. That's probably a good move. A lot of pressure on the d6 pawn indirectly. But I wanted to wait with a6. Now he took it off. Took the pressure off. So the point was to kind of wait, and when he goes bishop f4, taking pressure off of b6, then I'll play a6. I don't want to play a6 unless I have to. That's my thinking here. Is there any real threat? Probably not. Try to walk away with maybe rook d8. Go walking away. You know, I don't want to radically weaken my structure with something stupid like e5. Just castling by hand here. And now maybe e5, not e5, maybe knight e5, or maybe a6 is possible. a6 still he has counterplay. This very annoying move, knight a4. Actually, his knight gets kind of trapped there. He's doing good under the circumstances. This b4 kind of controversial. He's weakening himself along the c line. I think I'm clearly better now. Pawn up. I don't know if I should give him a chance to double my pawns, but my dark square bishop is so strong. Alright, Salkonen. A little bit of opening study is in order there. We've got time for at least 2 more games, Epithetos and Pepper Sword. Miots needs to re-challenge to something like reasonable. 8, actually, you know, Miots should re-challenge to 5-3. Because I'm probably only going to play 2 more games. If one of them is fast, though, I will play one more. Fast one. So Miots wants to throw in one more challenge. DST, I can't say I agree with you that everyone, whoever has opportunities, can be in the top 100 in the world in chess, man. I think that's going a little too far, man. I mean, I understand your basic point, but I think that you're exaggerating, man, you know. There are a lot of brilliant people who could never touch the top 100 in the world who are really had a lot of opportunities. So I don't want to like totally disagree with your point, but I think you're exaggerating, man, you know. That's my only comment on that. Bishop g2. It's the same case here in Hungary. I mean, who are the 2 most talented players at the moment among the Hungarian juniors? The 2 ones who were like coming from the wealthiest families, probably. It's not a coincidence. You know, I don't think that Richard Rapport and Gladura are necessarily any more talented than anybody else, but they definitely had more money than the other top juniors to travel to tournaments like all over the world. So I hear what DST is saying, but I think he needs to tone it down in terms of the exaggeration. You know, it's not easy for anybody to ever get in the top 100 in the world, man. I mean, that's something you should have a little more respect for. Okay, here I transposed to some kind of Benoni. This was not really what I intended to do. Okay, whatever. That's fine. Fianchetto Benoni it is. If you had his opportunities, do you honestly believe you would be in the top 100? I don't think so, dude. I don't know, man. I'm not saying it's impossible. I really don't know, you know. It's possible, and it's possible that it's not possible, you know. I can't say, man. It's a hypothetical that I don't know. You know, I have my own limitations, and maybe I'm not emotionally strong enough, you know, to be that good, or my nerves aren't good enough, or you know, I have limitations. So it's impossible to say. But I would agree that it would have been possible, you know, if I had had more money, more opportunities. It's clear that Rapport and like Gladura have out. I can only speak from the Hungarian perspective because that's where I've lived for the last 12 years. It's clear that the players with more money have more opportunities, and they've gone quickly further. So it does seem like a huge advantage. But I don't think that just anybody can reach the top 100. It takes a certain psychological kind of strength, and I'm not sure that can be bought, you know. 92, I don't really know about 92. That's pretty rare. Don't play the Benoni too often with black. Out of the King's Indians sometimes. Hard to trade pieces in this kind of structure. There's the problem with the pawns avalanching with like f4 and e5 many times. I can't trade pieces. So I'm thinking about how to set up here. b6, bishop a6 type ideas. Looks possible. a6, the old a6, a4. Man, I wish I knew a little bit of Benoni theory, because I'm clueless here. Maybe knight a6, knight c7. What's going to happen if he tries to do like a pawn avalanche type of attack? How am I going to deal with that? This is where I need a little bit of knowledge that I don't have. Knight e2. I mean, if you played knight f3, I would know what I was doing. But here... And I can't do b5. Knight takes b5. There's nothing there. Rook e8, putting pressure on the center. He just castles. And then... I'm not really sure how I follow that up. I mean, I might rob my knight of a good square on e8. When I get down to a minute, I'm just going to start moving whatever the best plan is I can find. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I have to stop the pawn avalanche. I mean, that's the kind of most important concept, I suppose. If we want to stop the pawn avalanche, I have to be prepared to play like knight e8 at some point. Okay, a3 looks like a weird move. That is not good, man. There's no fear, you know, don't fear knight b4. I mean, it's not a horrible move, but that's not your main plan. Knight e8, bishop d7. I gotta play for b5, but he has knight b5. Knight d7 is another plan. Bishop d7. This looks stupid for black. It looks really stupid to play bishop d7. I have to say, this isn't stopping the avalanche. Whatever. I don't like my game that much here. But I'm not sure Apathetos really, you know... Do we already play you, Apathetos? We already played you, man. This is your second game. There was nobody else challenging. Yeah, I guess Mule Skinner was gone, and we're playing the same player twice. But that's okay, as long as... actually, b4. Maybe I play b4 anyway. Whatever, man. I get my knight to b4. It's not so bad. I don't know about knight a4. I'm down to 15 seconds now. You got 5 minutes. Oh, he's doing it again. I told you already. I have no idea, man. I think that you're good at bullet chess, but it's hard to approximate what your strength is. You're playing too fast and trying to play bullet chess. So I have no clue how good you are, you know. I'm trying to play like classical, longer games. Okay, here we have a problem. Maybe bishop d4 check. This is a crazy thing to do, though. It's really crazy. My whole structure is sort of torn apart. I gave up my dragon Benoni bishop, but you blundered. I don't know, Apathetos, you just play too fast, you know? Very hard for me to tell you, I mean, what your strength is. It seems like pretty good, but I have no idea what you'd be like if you actually took your time. Pretty good, I guess. was about to lose on time there. I shouldn't have accepted his challenge because he's really playing too fast. And it seems kind of silly, you know, like we're wasting our time here. The same as last time. So guys, we have time for 1 or 2 more games, depending on how long this one takes. White has 5 minutes left, so it could be quite a while. He saw that coming. Still hanging on. This looks pretty bad for white, though. But Apathetos, impossible for me to say, man. You get a good position, but you play too fast. You know, are you capable of playing slower games? That's the question. Until he learns to use his time. Yeah. There is a check here. Maybe better to play this one. Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's just a waste of time to play this out. So I've only got time to play like 10 games in the stream. It doesn't really make sense to play it out till mate. Your prerogative, but sorry, dude. It's very entertaining. Alright, guys, so just 2 long games. I don't know if I'm going to be able to manage that. I've got to quit at 12:30, so we'll see how it goes. I'd rather play like one longer game and 1 blitz game, but I've got Paper Sword and another challenger who are challenging to long games. Mule Skinner's 8-3. I don't know if I'm going to have time for that, Mule Skinner. I mean, if you'd be willing to play me 5-3, I think that would be more realistic for our time limitations here. I didn't realize I'd already played Apathetos. I wouldn't have played him again. I didn't realize he's the guy who doesn't use his time. Although that does save us some time in the long run, I guess. It's actually faster that way. Except for the fact that he doesn't resign at the end. So, this is a Tarash. I love playing against the Tarash, I have to say. You're pretty good at moving with increment. Maybe you could play 04 time controls off stream. Yeah, sure. I can play that, of course. It would be better. Paper Sword, you're welcome. Yeah, DST, what does 04 count as, time control wise? Is that blitz, or does that count as some absurd bullet? What is that time control classified as? Of course, like 04, 05 would be natural for me. The other day I lost a lot of rating points because I was playing sudden death, like 5-0 and berserking and stuff with 2.5-minute games. It's just been such a long time since I've been doing the stream. I've been playing basically only increment, that I kind of forgot that I need to modify my style when I'm playing something like with 2.5 minutes sudden death. And also forgetting that I don't have the increment, because I'm so used to relying on increment a lot. I would get myself in end games and stuff where there's like no way I'll convert in time. You have to change your whole approach when you're playing without increment. Wormius says, playing knight f3 c5 is like saying, please, Sicilian. Yeah, that's why here on the Opening Explorer it's classified as the Sicilian invitation. Obviously you've got to be able to play the Sicilian, but it's also, like in my case, players who are comfortable playing symmetrical English employ that move order. That's another very important prerequisite of playing knight f3 c5. You know, I tried to make 2 moves in a row again. I'm a little bit, I think I need oxygen. I think that's the problem. I feel a little foggy. The brain feels a little bit foggy. Even after having a nice big coffee, I couldn't really find my zone today. Okay, we had the simul last night. I don't know if that took something out of me. Every Sunday evening I do a simul here on lichess for 20 to 25 players, and it's possible that playing the simul last night sort of spent my brain cells, but hard to say. Just lack of oxygen is the problem. 04 is bullet. You can reach 2600 in bullet. If you find enough players who are willing to play that time control, I guess. That's the question that everybody's dying to know. DST. Can you find enough people to play 04 bullet? Because I would think that most bullet players would be appalled by that increment. Now we have an interesting moment. Queen b6 here. I don't think I've ever faced that before. It actually looks like a good move. It makes a lot of sense to play queen b6 here. The other day I looked up this bishop e6. Maybe you're supposed to take on e6. I've always played queen a4, and since I can remember. I always thought this was like a Potzer variation, but I think I did see some games by some decent players. But queen b6, seems like a slight problem. Now, like, there's just absolutely no convenient way of defending b2. It's almost like, it almost feels like a refutation of the entire concept of playing queen a4. What am I supposed to do here? Knight b3? It might be forced. Like the only convenient way of defending my... The only good way of defending my b2 pawn. It looks very passive. It is, in fact, very passive, but black should be okay. Queen b6 is strong, dude. I don't know why nobody ever plays that against me. Maybe once. I'm gonna have to research this and probably ditch queen a4. I guess I have to just take the bishop and play that position. Maybe there are other moves, like rook c1 looks like a good move. We can find something else. This deserves serious research. Oh, there are some weird lines where you might be able to sack on b2, sure, but I just, I don't see the point. Like, wait, what are we talking about? Knight b5. Sacking b2, but, okay, let's say, how do you want to sack the b2 pawn? The problem is that my knight is hanging all the time. When he takes on b2, he's going to be sacking. So you're saying sack the pawn on b2, then like play knight b5 at some point? Black has all sorts of possibilities. This doesn't seem right for me. I doubt h6 is a great move. Bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. Knight takes d5, take, bishop takes b2. Probably that's okay for black. But why do I have to take on f6? I mean, this is the point. Now things get interesting. My main idea with knight b3 was to turn this around and try to exploit the position of his queen on b6. So he's kind of helping me with h6. I feel like that's what I was trying to do. Maybe black's still okay here, but h6 probably not objectively best. But then again, what was he supposed to do? He could play queen b4 and just trade queens. He's probably equal there, objectively, not many people are going to want to play this move, maybe, if they're aggressive in nature, but if black trades queens, it seems like he's okay, and otherwise he can just bring a rook to the center. Bring his rooks to the center. Some order of moves. e3 is an idea for white, of course. But I like this better. I mean, he probably has to play queen b4 anyway. But I think h6 bishop e3 just improves my position. Because I don't really want to take on f6 unless I'm like winning a pawn on d5 or something, which I'm not. He's always taking my pawn on b2. There is complication here. He might have d4. But that looks kind of dodgy. Actually, it was interesting, d4. Critical. Because there's this d4 and then like bishop takes d4, bishop takes b3. There's this in-between move he has, bishop takes b3 at some point. And I think that it could lead to a lot of simplification that could just be equal. Some ops-colored bishops, or that this position looks like I've still got my kind of fundamental advantage, in that I blockaded the d4 pawn. So I think stopping d4 is the priority here. We can let him trade on a4. We bring the rook to the center. We're still better, I think. Yeah, h6 doesn't look good. I think he might have had d4 there. Your friend's bullet rating is 2199. DST's trying to make deals. I'm gonna need an oxygen tank or something because I can't think. I'm definitely not gonna play bullet today. Even 0-4. I need a clear mind. I'm not feeling it today. Blockadovich. Well, there's knight d4. But I've got to watch this. There's also bishop d4. Queen takes b4. Bishop takes b4. And there's rook c1, developing a piece. What's wrong with that? Oh, are you going to play d4 again? Is he going to have d4? I don't think so. All my pieces are developed. All your pieces are developed except for your rook on f8. I have a better structure. And then he played knight e4. Hoping I take so that his bishop on e6 is resurrected. This is a sort of standard Tarrasch theme, knight e4. The justification would be like here, you know, if my knight takes on e4, I hang my queen, so I have to trade queens first, and it's just kind of nasty. Trading queens first brings like this knight to b4. Maybe it's okay for me though. Play anything, a3. We have lots of possibilities. I don't even know which way he should recapture, bishop or knight. It's kind of hard to say. But he's fought the interesting fight here. Not easy for me to win a pawn or even prove an advantage, actually. Guys, I have time for one last game after this. Whoever it might be. Moats, I can't play 2-6. Mule Skinner did change his challenge, which is cool because that will fit our schedule a little better. So knight takes into e4 leaves me really dropping my queen side, it looks like. You have to constantly think about what the other guy's pieces are getting, you know, out of a situation. I think I have to play a3 here. And I'm not really happy about it because it weakens my queen side, but I mean, this hanging knight is okay. He doesn't have d4, I think. So after everything's said and done, I managed to maintain my blockade. We have rook d3, doesn't look great because of this very, very classic Tarrasch maneuver like knight e5 to c4. That's nasty, and we don't want that to happen. We still don't have enough here. Paper sword. Now, paper sword understands how to play with increment. It appears. We finally managed to win a pawn. I think. It would appear so. Unless I got my rook trapped, which does not appear to be the case. Yeah, he's almost winning a pawn back. And now the e3, that was the aforementioned e3 idea. This is looking good. And now we're breaking through. Taking all the pawns. So it was a good try by Paper Sword. Came very close. Interesting game, though. Interesting move, Queen b6 there against Queen a4. I have to take a look at that. I think that it may just be good. Last game for the stream today will be And then Meowths, I can't play 2 minute. It's just too fast. So Epithetos doesn't understand. King Hunter, good game earlier, but I can't play another one. Last game, 5-3, guys. So let's play an e4. Played a lot of d4 and more like English opening type stuff today. Oh no, Emil Skinner. No. I can't play the 92. 92 French, man. My head hurts too much. I have like a headache. I feel like I have oxygen deficiency or something. I've got to play something else. I can't possibly play like that nasty variation of the Tarash. This is my coffeehouse blitz system against the French. I am Minky. Thanks for the stream. Wonderful as usual. You're welcome, sir. So this is just some kind of, I want to say, Kopek-like approach to the French. One day I invented when I was just like tired of playing closed positions. I was thinking, how can I keep the tension against the French, you know? And then looking at it, it turns out like a lot of people have done this. It's not like something, I actually invented it for myself, but I was like reinventing something that like a dozen people had already invented. Just tired of playing totally locked structures, so I try to keep the center a little bit fluid. And I have good results in blitz, but I wouldn't want to play this like in a serious game where I needed to try to get a real advantage with white. Pukro says you won over the board with what? B3? Okay, that's also interesting. Good suggestion. We could actually transpose in some cases to something similar. I'm gonna play B3 most likely myself. Seems like a good moment to do it here. There may be better moves though. I'm not sure if I should play rook e1, and the move order is kind of tricky. No, here, okay. Rook e1 is useful. I want to free my bishop to be able to retreat back to f1 sometimes. The line you play with two knights, French actually was recommended as a surprise weapon by Eric Rosen. Well, the two knights is an established line, of course, but normally like people would play like Nimzovich, you know, and play e5 on move 4 instead of bishop d3. Of course, like this is a very old Nimzovich idea. There were times when I played the move a3 to stop knight b4, but I feel like that move is pretty weak, actually. But the problem is if I decide to play e5 at some point, I have to be able to support that pawn with a lot of defense. So I don't want to play this too early, because if I play e5, knight d7, he has like queen c7, f6 very quickly, and oftentimes we need a little bit more backup. Bishop b2, knight b4, bishop f1, d4 can be tricky as well. So I'm just trying to think. I have played a3. I don't really trust a3 though. I hate taking on d5. e5 looks early. Bishop b2 allows knight b4. There's some positional like d4, d3 type of things black can do. Maybe it's not that bad. Take. I don't like that, man. I don't like the look of that for white. Maybe it's okay, though. Mule Skinner, I don't think he listens to the stream while he's playing. I'm not 100% certain. I'm kind of guessing he doesn't, because I think I've made comments before in other games. He didn't seem to really change his plan based on my commentary. So I hope he didn't hear what I said about knight b4. Yeah, of course bishop b2 is the most natural move. The question is knight b4 and the idea of d4, d3. And I was just calculating that. And now we have the added problem of, well, I have e5 too. e5 takes. No, I don't. Do I? Do I have that? e5 takes c3, takes f6, takes b2, takes e7. I do have that, don't I? That's pretty bizarre and probably not even that great for white. But it's probably playable. The knight e2 is far more natural. I have to calculate knight e2, and again, no, I think we have to play knight b5 is even possible, but I think knight here looks, man, knight b5 looks stupid. Knight e2, knight b4. I end up in a bad English defense or something if I'm not careful. I think I've got to do this. But as I said earlier, I mean, this is why oftentimes I employed the move a3. We have this retreat, we have c3 breaks, like in a reversed English defense type position. He just played a solid move, queen c7. Adding strength along this diagonal. Of course c3 is fine for white, but I think black is also fine. To be perfectly honest, he's clearing the d file. It's almost like he's prepared for c3. So maybe it's better for me to omit that, you know, and change plans. Kind of hate bishop f1 though. Maybe better to play, you know, bishop b5 doesn't even have a point here. I'm gonna have to make a decision. Alright. I'm not really in love with this bishop on f1. We might have to turn it into a King's Indian attack with g3. But it's fully playable. I just don't like c3. He's ready to play d takes c and then like rook d8, and it's kind of a boring symmetrical structure where there's nothing happening. So I'd rather keep the position kind of tense. Now he can play e5, change the structure to a King's Indian, reversed King's Indian. In which case I'll be like, oh man, I wish I had played bishop b5 because I could take on c6 and double his pawns. And I have a strange setup for the white side of I have a strange setup for a King's Indian with a fianchetto. It's not really normal, you know. My queen side's kind of weakened. The bishop is fianchettoed into this. So I like e5 for black here. Don't really know what else he's going to do, you know. Bishop d7. Okay, it's like a neutral move. It doesn't commit to any plan in particular, but it does take away the d7 square from his knight as far as retreating in a King's Indian type structure. Okay, this move was something I didn't really... Well, I still don't really know what it does. Objectively, maybe he wasted a little bit of time. The position hasn't changed dramatically, but feels like he wasted time. I weakened my queen side, but I was kind of trying to sort of carve out an outpost for the knight on c4. Maybe my knight is better off going to d2, not to get sidelined. head for the king side. Although my bishop, typically in the King's Indian, when this happens in the ready or King's Indian, you're going to need to recirculate back to this diagonal because you're dead against the d4 pawn. We play for king side attack, black plays for queen side. Typical King's Indian kind of structure. And I'm a little weakened on the queen side with all these pawn moves I made, you know. So it happens a lot when I'm black in the English defense and some kind of hippopotamus type of formation where I'm like double fianchettoed and say I'm black with the double fianchetto hippo and you're like turning it into a King's Indian, but you've got to bring the bishop around back to the king's side. The queen side's all weakened. This is a bad looking move. I mean, I don't understand really. Helping me. Tucking the queen there. That's fine, man. Just fine. He's hoping that I'm going to like cooperate and play f4 and let him like walk a knight into g4 and h5. I think you're playing on the wrong side of the board here, Mule Skinner. I think you're playing on the wrong side of the board fundamentally. But you might be able to get away with it. You might just be able to get away with it. He's playing a dangerous game. Really. His queen is kind of stuck and it feels like he's, again, he's supposed to be playing on the queen side, but he's playing on the king side instead. Which should be my strong side with the pawn on e4. I'm not in love with my last move. But we're really, really short of time. Just a good King's Indian attack for white. He did manage to salvage that pawn. So he's probably hanging on here. He can play g5 and not lose material. Now there's a lot of space for white. But still black's probably okay. It looks like a Benoni. Where I'm a little bit short of space. In some respects. It's very imbalanced. The h4 pawn looks like it's close to being a goner. We both have overextended pawns, respectively. Yeah, that one's... I think you should have played more actively there. Still not an easy game. He's got like a monster queen on d5. This one. I don't know what's going on here objectively. Queen h5 check. I mean, it feels like it should be mate practically. g6, but I don't see it. No immediate mate. Wow. Okay, he just got desperate. He was in trouble. Okay, Mule Skinner. I mean, if you don't do something, I'm going to play h5 and then checkmate you with g6, queen h8. So it's probably lost at that point. But this is the typical kind of messy game that would ensue in this really weird setup. You know, I win a lot of games that reach like absurd, chaotic, kind of random positions in this two knights with bishop d3. It's not really correct for white, but it does create messy situations, generally speaking. Again, good for like blitz and maybe a rapid game, but I wouldn't want to play it in like a tournament game against a strong French defense player. Anyway, guys, I'll be back tomorrow. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me. And the plan will be Tuesday, blitz and classical chess. Then Wednesday, we have weird Wednesday when I play unusual openings. Thursday, Friday, and then again following Sunday, another simul here on lichess. Stay tuned for my uploads. I still have to upload the simul stream from yesterday to YouTube. Although you guys can always watch on Twitch the replays like the last 2 weeks or so. And otherwise, thanks to everybody for joining me, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget if you want to contact me for anything chess related, including lessons or even suggestions or questions, please contact me, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. And if I don't get back right away to you, please forgive me because I'm usually kind of busy. So anyway, that's my email. And again, thanks to those of you who have donated via PayPal to the stream, supporting the stream and my YouTube channel. Much appreciated. And those that will do so in the future. If you cannot, I just appreciate you guys being here to cheer us on and take part in the commentary and the fun. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, 10 a.m. CET, Central European Time. Bye-bye.